I used to be one of those people who didn't believe in anything. Ghosts, demons, curses. All that stuff was entertainment to me. A good story, nothing more. I was a real estate agent. Logic and paperwork were my daily language. Square footage, listing photos, walkthroughs. Nothing mysterious about it. At least, that's what I believed until I stepped inside that house on Elder Pines Road. It was late fall. I remember that clearly. One of those gray afternoons where the sun never really comes out and everything feels like it's stuck in the same hour all day. The sky had that heavy, colorless look. You know the kind. Like the world was holding its breath. The house had been on the bank's foreclosure list for nearly 3 years. No maintenance, no power, no owner. Just sitting there at the end of a long gravel path, hidden behind leafless trees and a broken fence. My job that day was simple. Take a few updated interior photos, check for visible damage, and log the property condition so we could finally put it up for sale. I've done dozens of these. When I pulled up, the driveway was half buried under dead leaves. There were cracks in the foundation, and the porch had rotted through in places. I had to step over one of the boards just to reach the door. But the strangest thing was how quiet it was. Not a single sound. No wind. No birds. No distant highway hum. It was like the world stopped 5 feet before the house and refused to go any farther. That should have been my first clue. I unlocked the front door. The key took a little effort, like the lock hadn't turned in years, and stepped inside. The air hit me immediately. Thick, stagnant. It had that smell of damp wood and dust that settles into your nose and coats your tongue. The kind of smell that says you're not supposed to be here. I clicked on my flashlight and started moving through the house. The living room was small, filled, with overturned chairs and scattered debris. The kitchen still had old cereal boxes in the pantry, rotted and mouse-chewed, and a cracked window over the sink. Nothing unusual for an abandoned home, but it was cold. I mean, unnaturally cold. The kind of cold that settles in your bones, even though the outside temperature wasn't that bad. And I remember noticing how still everything was. Not even the sound of the floor creaking under my shoes. It was like the house was holding its breath. I chalked it up to nerves. I was alone in a crumbling house in the middle of nowhere. That's enough to make anyone feel on edge. I moved through the dining room and into the back hallway. I took my usual notes: water damage along the ceiling, evidence of mold, broken light fixtures. Same old. Then I made my way upstairs. The staircase was narrow, with peeling wallpaper lining both sides. At the top, a hallway branched off to the left and right, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. I turned left first. The first bedroom was filled with broken furniture, a dresser missing drawers, an old mattress leaning against the wall. I snapped a photo. Nothing strange. I've worked in foreclosure cleanup for over a decade. Most people think it's a simple job. Sweep out the trash, haul out old furniture, maybe paint over graffiti. But it's more than that. When homes get abandoned, they don't just fall apart. They absorb whatever happened inside them. And sometimes what's left behind isn't just furniture. This happened back in 2019. I was living outside St. Louis at the time, working for a private contracting group that handled distressed properties for banks. We'd get assigned houses that had been repossessed, usually from people who either vanished or just walked away from their mortgage when things got bad. I was used to mess. Hoarder homes, mold infestations, even squatters now and then. You learn to keep your guard up. But this house was different from the second I saw. It was a 2-story colonial, tucked at the end of a dead-end street. The driveway was cracked and half swallowed by weeds. Every window had been covered with newspaper, not boarded, not curtained, just layers of yellowing, brittle paper from the inside. I remember thinking how strange that was. Who even does that? There was no car in the garage, no mailbox, no trash cans. The whole place looked like it had been wiped off someone's memory. I was assigned to clean it alone. Standard protocol was to do a quick walkthrough first, just to assess safety, check for animal nests, broken floors, anything that could get you injured. I let myself in through the back door. The kitchen was cold, not temperature-wise, but cold in that dead air kind of way, stale, heavy. There were dishes in the sink, covered in dust. A broken chair tipped over in the corner. An open newspaper on the counter, dated October 2014. 5 years ago. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was how everything else was missing. No couch, no beds, no clothes in the closet. It wasn't messy. It was ... erased. Like someone came through with a checklist and removed it. Everything that could tell you who lived there. I moved upstairs, took note of the cracked bathroom mirror, scuffed floorboards, 2 bedrooms, both empty. One had a broken ceiling fan. The other had a stain on the carpet that I didn't want to get too close to. Then I headed to the basement. That's where things went sideways. The basement door was stuck. Not locked, just swollen from humidity, maybe. Took a few shoulder shoves to get it open. The stairwell was pitch black. I flicked on my flashlight and headed down. The air changed immediately. Colder, stiller, like the oxygen was old. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams. Boxes stacked along one wall. Rusty water heater that had clearly given up the will to live years ago. I moved slowly, scanning with my flashlight. That's when I noticed it. One section of the back wall didn't match the others. All the walls were rough concrete, except this one, which was painted drywall. Newer, whiter, like someone had sealed something up recently. And it didn't align with the floor plan in my memory. There should have been open space all the way to the wall, but this drywall stood out, like a patch job that hadn't been finished. I walked over and tapped on it. Hollow. My stomach dropped. Look, I've seen people hide safes, drugs, even cash behind fake walls. It's not uncommon. But something about this space, the size, the silence, made my skin crawl. I told myself I'd just take a look. One quick peek, make sure no squatters were using it. There was a crowbar in the truck. I went back upstairs, grabbed it, and returned to the basement. It only took 2 hard pulls to crack open a piece of the drywall. Behind it was another wall. Wooden, old, with peeling green paint. A wall behind a wall. I broke through that one too. And behind it was a room. A small, windowless space no bigger than a walk-in closet. No lights, just concrete and wood. And something else. There was a mattress on the floor. Old, stained, moldy, torn in places. One corner of it was covered in something black and sticky. I couldn't tell if it was mold or something else. Next to it was a small metal bucket. And on the far wall, scratched deep into the wood, were words. She never stopped screaming. I stepped back so fast I hit the beam behind me. The air in that room. It was wrong. Wet. Metallic. Like old blood and mold. The kind of smell that grabs the back of your throat and won't let go. There were scratch marks on the inside of the door. Long, deep ones. Some higher than I could reach. Whoever had been in there, they weren't sitting still. I stumbled back into the basement, heart pounding, and nearly dropped the flashlight. For the first time in my career, I felt genuinely afraid to be alone in a house. I didn't finish the cleanup. I got out, locked the back door, and left everything exactly as I found it. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind kept going back to those scratches, the words, the mattress, that room that wasn't supposed to be there. The next morning, I reported it to the company. They passed it on to the bank. The bank called the county. Eventually, a city inspector went out with police. Their official report said the room was likely used as storage or shelter by transients. No further investigation. But here's the part that still eats at me. 3 weeks later, I drove past the house again on my way to another job. There was a light on in the basement window. Not a flashlight, a candle. Just sitting there, flickering in the dark. That house is still on file as unlisted, pending demolition. But every so often, I hear rumors from other contractors. Ones who've been sent out there to remove boards, or reset locks, or take fresh photos. And every single one of them says the same thing. They don't go into the basement. I was 16 when I met the house. My grandparents lived in a small, quiet town in upstate New York. One of those places that feels permanently stuck in time. Faded storefronts, a single blinking traffic light, and houses that look like no one's lived in them since the 60s. I spent that summer with them while my mom was recovering from surgery. I didn't mind. They had a big backyard, a bike I could use, and the town library had working Wi-Fi. But what I remember most was that house. It sat across the street, about 4 houses down. A tall, narrow building with a steep roof and a sagging porch. The kind of place you imagine ghosts living in, boarded windows, peeling gray paint, and overgrown weeds creeping up the sides like veins. Or at least, everyone said it was. But something about it pulled at me. I'm an artist. It was abandoned. I sketch everything. Faces, hands, buildings, anything that feels like it has a story to tell. And that house had layers of story buried under its rotting wood and broken gutters. One afternoon, I set up across the street on the curb with my sketchbook and started drawing it. I sketched the outline first, the jagged roofline, the cracked shingles, the porch railings, the chimney, the second-floor window with the shutters hanging like broken arms. One day, I added a small detail, a figure in the upstairs window. Not because I saw anything, but just because it felt right. Like that house needed someone inside it. A silhouette behind the curtain. But the day after that, I noticed something that stopped me cold. The curtain in the upstairs window, the one I had drawn the figure in, had moved. Not a lot. Just a few inches. Just enough to show a sliver of glass I swore wasn't visible before. I stared at it for 5 minutes straight. Nothing moved. No shadow. No breeze. Just the curtain, slightly parted, as if someone had peeked through. I told myself it was wind, or gravity, or maybe an animal had gotten in. But the next day, when I returned with my sketchbook, the curtain was back to where it had been originally. Except this time, there was a face behind it just for a second. It wasn't clear, just a flash of pale skin, dark eyes, and the outline of a head, not watching me, not moving, just there. I dropped my pencil. When I looked back, it was gone. Curtain still. The window is dark. I didn't draw that day. I just went home and told myself I'd imagined it. But the next morning, something else was waiting for me. I always kept my sketchbook on the kitchen counter at my grandparents' house. No one touched it. They respected my space. But when I opened it, the last drawing I'd done, the one with the face in the window, was gone, ripped, clean from the spiral binding. And in its place ... was a new drawing. One I hadn't made. It was the same house, same window, same perspective. But the figure in the window wasn't just a silhouette now. It had details, eyes, teeth, hair like tangled wires, and it was smiling. Lines were sharp, angry, carved deep into the paper like someone had pressed hard with the pencil. I didn't show it to anyone. I tore it out, crumpled it, and buried it in the kitchen trash. Then, I stopped sketching the house. For days, I avoided that street entirely. I stuck to the backyard, the library, anywhere else. The feeling didn't go away. That itch in the back of my skull, like someone was watching, like something was waiting. One night, I couldn't sleep. It was past midnight, and the street was dead quiet. I got up, walked to the front window, and looked toward the house. There was a light on upstairs, a soft orange glow, like a candle or a dim lamp. I blinked. In the window, the same window I had drawn, stood the figure again, this time clearer. It wasn't just a person. It was something pretending to be a person. The head was tilted too far, the arms were too long, and the smile, wide and unblinking, stretched too far across its face. And in its hands, pressed against the glass, was a sketchbook. My sketchbook I backed away from. The window, heart racing, and nearly tripped over the hallway rug. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I went across the street for the first time. Broad daylight, summer sun, blazing. I walked right up to the porch. The floorboards groaned under my feet. A single step inside felt like stepping into a freezer. Air was sharp, cold, and thick with dust. I called out just once. No answer. The house was silent. I made it to the base of the stairs, but something in me refused to climb. Instead, I turned back, but before I left, I noticed something near the doorframe, a piece of paper, tucked just under the edge of a broken floorboard. I pulled it out. It was a drawing, charcoal, smudged and rushed. It showed me, sitting across the street, sketching. The house was behind me in the drawing, and in the window, the same figure watching. I left it there, didn't take it, didn't look back. A week later, my mom was well enough for me to go home. I never visited that house again. My grandparents sold their home the following year and moved south. Sometimes I still draw abandoned places, but I never include people, not even imagined ones. And when I sketch windows ... I leave them empty, just in case something decides to look back.